We're going to use our log dog to keep the whole log stable and not moving around. At the moment you can see that this is a little bit high in the middle. I've been taking it down to the edges on both sides. Now I have it level on both sides. Now I'll start to take the center out. Once I've done that, I will do what's called planing with the chainsaw, and that will bring it down so it's pretty much level. So next up we want to tackle the levelness and just check it out. So putting it this way, it's pretty good. Putting it over here, it's pretty good. There's a little bit of a high spot in the center, so we'll make a little bit of a mark there. Then if you go cross to cross and look for the high spot, there's the high spot. Go across this way, is there any high spots? There's a high spot just here. So I take my pencil and I mark it. As you can see from our brushing with using the side of the bar, we can get a fairly nice finish. In fact, you could do this out at your log cabin in the woods with just a chainsaw, and you can have a really quite nice bench. And with a little bit of hand sanding afterwards, you could probably smooth it out fairly well. We're not going to do that here. I'm just going to use a power planer just to do the final touch up. You could also use a sander or a grinder to do the final touch up also. So here we've got a 6-inch Makita power planer, and I like this because it's got such a big foot on it that it doesn't tend to move around, but it's not so big that I can't handle it. When you use a power planer, I usually take off one side, then the other side, and then I twist it and come down the center. Down. When I come down the center, I back the blade height off a little bit because it seems to cut just a little bit deeper in the center. And I do that until it's nice and flat. So let's have a go at that now. I always find it useful to wrap this around my arm because they tend to get caught up and then they get little chips out of them, and sometimes if you're unlucky enough you cut through the whole cord. There's a big bang and you'll end up with dents in your blade. Sometimes, as you can see, it's a little uneven in the middle, and the best way to get rid of this is just to go across just lightly. Just back your height off and just take out that little center if you need to, like this. So next up, what we've got here is we're going to have a go at squaring up the ends of the log so we can actually have it sit level on the ground. So let's take a look at that next. So we're going to do as we did before. We're going to take our ink line and we'll put a little mark there, and then we'll just stretch it down and snap it the whole way down. And there we have our mark. And off this, now we have a square center, so we can square off that to get our ends tight. So you take your square and you put it on the end. Just check down that it doesn't curve right in, or because you don't want to square it off and then find out that it didn't go the whole way down. So you want to make sure that it's reasonably square and that you're going to cut the whole end off. So I'm going to take about 1 inch off here. I'm going to square my square up with the line here, and I'm going to draw a line across. Then I'll take my square, move it around, and I'll draw the rest of the line like that. Okay, next thing, I need to know the height of the chair. In my case, I'm going for about 36 inches. So I'm going to measure up here. Then I'll take my square and I will repeat the same operation as at the other end there. So what we're going to do for this next part of the project is we're going to take our knife here and we're going to cut on the line. The reason we're going to do this is to stop, when you're using the chainsaw, to stop the wood breaking out like this. So we'll just take our knife and we'll do that finish. After a while you'll be able to do this freehand and it shouldn't be a big deal. And we work our way around the whole log in a similar process. As you can see, there's very little breakout around the ends, and we followed a line along and it should be square going down. We can always check that by putting a square on here and just checking to make sure it's level. And if it is a little bit out, you can always brush it or plane it or grind it. Here we are with the right hand side of our bench. As you can see, I've done the same steps to get it to the same place as the left hand side. The only difference is that the other one, the left hand side, I used a planer to get it nice and flat. On the right hand side, I'm going to use a grinder. This way you can see that you can do it with either one, or as I said before, you can leave it rough. There's two things that you're going to need in order to do this. The first one will be a grinder, of course. This is a 5-inch Makita grinder. It's got a rubber back pad on it, and I usually start grinding with the 24 grit and work my way up to 80. I can go higher to 120, 150. However, especially on green lumber, your discs will plug up really quickly. So probably 80 is sufficient for anything that you're going to do. Well, as you can see, the finish with a grinder is really quite sweet.